here, the Grand Ole Opry, and the Ernest Tubb Record Shop. But we'd listen, try my very favorites on the Grand Ole Opry were the Louvin brothers. I couldn't wait for them.
At 84, Connie Smith finally speaks up about Bill Anderson. Connie Smith was born Connie Joan Romy on August 14, 1941 in Elkhart, Indiana. She rose from humble beginnings to become one of the genre's most celebrated female vocalists, earning admiration from peers, critics, and generations of fans alike. Connie's early life was marked by hardship and resilience. Growing up during difficult economic times, she endured a turbulent childhood that included poverty and personal struggles. Music became her refuge. She learned to play the guitar as a teenager and found comfort in the sounds of classic country, gospel, and Appalachian music. Those early influences would later shape her unmistakable vocal style, pure, piercing, and emotionally direct. Even as a young woman, Connie possessed a voice that conveyed heartbreak, longing, and strength with remarkable clarity. Her life changed dramatically in the early 1960s when she moved to Ohio and joined a local band. During a performance, she was discovered by Bill Anderson, one of country music's most respected songwriters. Recognizing the rare power of her voice, Anderson helped her secure a recording contract with RCA Victor. That partnership would launch one of the most significant debuts in country music history. In 1964, Connie Smith released her first single, Once a Day. The song became an immediate sensation, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart, where it remained for an unprecedented 8 consecutive weeks. A record for a female country artist at the time. The song's success established Connie as a major new star and introduced her signature sound, a soaring, emotionally charged vocal delivery paired with traditional country instrumentation. What followed was a decade of extraordinary success. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Connie Smith placed more than 70 songs on the country charts, including classics such as Then and Only Then, Ain't Had No Loving, I Never Once Stopped Loving You, and The Hurtin's All Over. Her recordings consistently reflected the core values of classic country music, heartfelt storytelling, honesty, and emotional depth. At a time when the genre was beginning to evolve toward more polished pop-oriented sounds, Connie's voice became her calling card. Fellow artists and producers frequently described it as one of the finest instruments ever heard in country music. Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, George Jones, and Merle Haggard all expressed deep admiration for her talent, with many citing Connie Smith as a benchmark for vocal excellence. Her ability to convey vulnerability without exaggeration made her songs feel personal and deeply relatable. Despite her professional success, Connie's personal life was not without challenges. She faced struggles with anxiety, depression, and the pressures of fame, issues she would later speak about with openness and grace. In the late 1970s, at the height of her popularity, she made the deeply personal decision to step away from the music industry to focus on her family and spiritual life. This choice, rare at the time, further solidified her reputation as an artist guided by conviction rather than commercial ambition. After several years away from the spotlight, Connie Smith returned to music on her own terms. Her later recordings, particularly those released in the 1990s and 2000s, were met with critical acclaim and renewed respect. Albums such as Connie Smith, Long Line of Heartaches, and The Cry of the Heart showcased a mature artist whose voice, though softened by time, had lost none of its emotional power. By the early 2000s, Smith's legacy was no longer just a matter of chart positions or gold records. It had become something deeper, more enduring, and far more personal within the world of country music. In 2002, she received one of the most meaningful honors of her storied career when she was ranked 9th on CMT's prestigious list of the greatest women of country music. The recognition placed her among the most influential female voices the genre had ever known, affirming what fans and fellow artists had long believed. Smith's voice, grace, and emotional honesty had helped shape the very soul of country music. Perhaps even more touching was the praise she received from one of her own heroes. Legendary country singer George Jones, whom Smith had admired throughout her life, paid her an extraordinary compliment by naming her his all-time favorite female country singer in his memoir, I Live to Tell It All. Coming from an artist whose opinions carried enormous weight in Nashville, the acknowledgement was both humbling and historic. A quiet but powerful testament to the respect Smith commanded among country music's greatest icons. Rather than resting on past accolades, Smith continued to follow her artistic and spiritual calling. In 2003, she released the Christian album Love Never Fails, a heartfelt collaboration with Barbara Fairchild and Sharon White of the acclaimed family group, The Whites. The project reflected Smith's deep faith and her desire to create music that uplifted and comforted listeners, blending gospel devotion with the sincerity that had always defined her singing. Her influence also extended to a new generation of country stars. In 2005, Martina McBride paid tribute to Smith by recording a cover of her signature hit, Once a Day, for the album, Timeless. The inclusion of the song reaffirmed its status as a classic and underscored Smith's lasting impact on modern country vocalists who admired her phrasing, restraint, and emotional depth. Remaining active as a solo performer, Smith delivered a memorable performance in May 2007 when she sang Sunani James' A World of Our Own at the Country Music Hall of Fame's prestigious medallion ceremony. The moment was a celebration not only of the song, but of Smith's own place within country music history. That same year, she also shared a deeply personal musical moment by recording a duet with her husband for his album Compadres, blending professional artistry with personal affection. In 2012, Connie Smith received one of the highest honors in her field when she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The recognition was long overdue and universally celebrated. During her induction, she was praised not only for her chart success, but for her unwavering dedication to the soul of country music. Her career was acknowledged as a bridge between the genre's traditional roots and its evolving future. Beyond awards and accolades, Connie Smith's true legacy lies in her influence. Countless artists, especially female country singers, have drawn inspiration from her phrasing, vocal strength, and emotional restraint. She proved that a woman could command the genre with grace and authority without sacrificing authenticity or artistic integrity. Smith's personal life has been marked by deep relationships, hard-earned lessons, and an enduring belief in love, faith, and commitment. Over the course of her life, she has been married 4 times. Each marriage reflecting a different chapter in her journey, both joyful and challenging, and revealing the resilience and humanity behind her public success. Her first marriage came in 1961 when she wed Jerry Smith, a ferro analyst at the Interlake Iron Corporation in Beverly, Ohio. At the time, Smith was still a young woman standing at the threshold of adulthood, balancing her private life with the beginnings of a demanding career. Together, they welcomed a son, Darren Justin, born on March 9, 1963. Darren would later carve out a meaningful life of his own, traveling to Europe in the late 1970s to serve as a missionary before eventually becoming a psychologist, an evolution that reflected both spiritual depth and intellectual curiosity. Despite the joy of raising a child together, the pressures of life and changing paths led Smith and Jerry to divorce in the mid-1960s, closing the first chapter of her marital life. Not long afterward, Smith found love again within the familiar world of music. She married Jack Watkins, a guitarist who performed in her touring band, a union born of shared stages, long road trips, and the intimate bond that forms between musicians working side by side. The couple had a son together, but the marriage proved short-lived. Within a year, they separated, a reminder of how difficult it can be to sustain a marriage under the relentless pace of life on tour and the emotional toll of constant travel. Soon after, Smith married Marshall Haynes, a telephone repairman whose life soon became closely intertwined with hers. In the early 1970s, Haynes frequently accompanied Smith on the road, traveling with her as part of her touring world. Their marriage was blessed with 3 daughters, expanding Smith's role as a mother and anchoring her family life during a period when her career continued to demand much of her time and energy. Though the marriage ultimately ended in divorce in the early 1990s, it represented one of the longest and most formative partnerships of her life. Following that divorce, Smith publicly declared that she would never marry again, believing that chapter of her life had closed for good. Yet fate had other plans. On July 8, 1997, she surprised many by marrying for the 4th time, this time to acclaimed country artist and producer Marty Stewart. Stewart had begun producing Smith's music after writing songs for her 1998 comeback album, reigniting both her career and unexpectedly a lifelong promise he had carried since childhood. Stewart often recalled first meeting Smith 26 years earlier when he was just 12 years old and attended one of her concerts at a fair on the Indian reservation near his hometown of Philadelphia, Mississippi. "I met Connie when I was 12 years old," he said. She hasn't changed a bit. She looked great then and she looks great now. Remarkably, Stewart even told his mother at the time that he was going to marry Connie Smith, a childhood prophecy that would one day come true. Reflecting on the strength and longevity of their marriage, Smith credits faith as its foundation. She has spoken openly about the importance of spiritual grounding, explaining simply yet profoundly how they have sustained their relationship. Make the Lord the center and commit. In those words lies the wisdom gathered from a lifetime of love, loss, hope, and renewal. An enduring testament to the belief that even after heartbreak, new beginnings are always possible. At 84 years old, Connie Smith has reached a place in life where reflection comes naturally and candor feels earned. Long admired as one of country music's purest voices, Smith has often let her songs speak for her. But when the conversation turns to Bill Anderson, the legendary songwriter, performer, and longtime presence in her life, she no longer feels the need to remain quiet. With the wisdom of decades behind her, Connie Smith finally opens up about the man who helped shape her career, her confidence, and her understanding of the music business itself. Bill Anderson came into my life at a time when I didn't even fully understand what was happening to me. Smith said, I was just a girl from Ohio who could sing. And suddenly, I was being pulled into this world that felt bigger than I ever imagined. Bill wasn't just part of that world. He was one of the people who helped guide me through it. Smith's breakthrough came quickly after she signed with RCA Victor in the mid-1960s. And Bill Anderson was instrumental in that rise. Already established as a songwriter and performer, Anderson saw something rare in Smith's voice, an emotional clarity that cut straight to the heart. He knew how to listen, she reflected, not just to my voice, but to who I was. He understood that I wasn't a flashy singer. I was a storyteller. Their professional relationship soon became a defining chapter in Smith's career. Anderson wrote several of her most enduring songs, including the iconic Once a Day, which became a massive hit and helped cement her place in country music history. Bill had this way of writing that felt like he was reading my diary. Smith said, I don't know how else to explain it. He wrote songs that fit me so perfectly. It was almost scary. Yet Smith is careful to emphasize that their bond was rooted in mutual respect rather than mythology. People always want to make things more dramatic than they really were, she said gently. Bill was a mentor, collaborator, and a friend. He challenged me musically, but he also respected my boundaries. That meant more to me than people realize. As a young woman navigating a male-dominated industry, Smith admits that Anderson's presence gave her a sense of stability. He didn't talk down to me, she said. He didn't try to mold me into something I wasn't. He believed that sincerity mattered more than polish, and that gave me confidence in myself. Over the years, their paths crossed and diverged as both artists evolved. Anderson continued writing and performing while Smith balanced her career with family life and later stepped back from the spotlight for extended periods. Through it all, her appreciation for Anderson deepened. When you get older, you start to see who really mattered. She said Bill mattered not because of fame or success, but because of how he treated people. Now looking back from the vantage point of 84 years, Smith speaks with clarity and gratitude rather than nostalgia. I don't live in the past, she explained, but I honor it and I honor the people who helped me survive it with my dignity intact. She pauses before adding, Bill Anderson helped give me a voice, not just on records, but as a person. For that, I'll always be thankful. In an industry often marked by fleeting alliances and unspoken resentments, Connie Smith's words stand out for their grace. Her reflections on Bill Anderson are not sensational, but they are deeply human, an acknowledgement of influence, kindness, and shared artistry. At 84, Connie Smith isn't rewriting history. She's simply telling it finally in her own quiet, unmistakable